Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG, and in this video today, I'll be focusing on Obeka Splitter of Seconds. So this is a new version of Obeka. The other previous version focused on ending turns right away, and everything on the stack would fizzle. But I would say this one is probably going to be a little better in my opinion, because instead of focusing on ending turns, this is going to give you basically additional upkeeps. So let's first read what Obeka does. So for 1 blue, black, and a red, it's a legendary creature, Ogre Warlock. It does have Menace, and whenever she does deal combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. So at the base level, if you do swing in with Obeka and you do connect with an opponent, you are going to get 2 additional upkeeps based off of her power, of course. But of course, if you do buff up her power a little bit more, the more upkeeps you can get. So this does lead to some interesting strategies. Of course, there's a lot of negative things that you can do. For example, if you have like a mana crypt on the battlefield, you swing with Obeka, you get 2 extra upkeeps. You have the chance of potentially flipping a coin into dealing extra 3 damage to you. So there is the potential of that. Of course, if you build your deck the right type of way, this is going to be definitely more of a benefit than a negative for you. So with that said, let's go into the deck and focus on the cards that you should put in there. So we do want to make sure that we could connect with Obeka and potentially grow her power so that we could get additional upkeeps. I do want to first focus on giving her unblockable, so for cards like Rogue's Passage and Access Tunnel, these both provide that way so that Obeka could just come in and not have to worry about being blocked and potentially could get wiped out. Of course, with Access Tunnel, target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked, so that's perfect because Obeka does have a power of 2. There are other options in black like Shizo, Death Storehouse, and the Black Gate. With Shizo, it's pretty simple. You just pay a black and tap it. Target legendary creature gains fear until end of turn, and it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures or black creatures, which can be pretty easy because of course this is a 4-player game. Most likely somebody is not going to be playing black on the table or artifact creatures on the table, so you can just swing away uncontested with Obeka. And in a similar way with the Black Gate, you could pay 1 and a black and tap it, choose target player with the most life or tied with the most life. Target creature can't be blocked by creatures that player controls this turn, so that's perfect. That's what we want to do with Obeka. There are also ways we could consistently put out power for Obeka. For example, Cryptic Coat and Zerael are perfect in the deck. Cryptic Coat will give +1/+0 and can't be blocked to our commander. Of course, you can just cloak a card, but I prefer just giving it to Obeka so that you can swing in. Also with Zerael, it does have a wide range of abilities to give +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn to one of our creatures like Obeka. It can also make it double on the battlefield and give us extra combats if we do get to the emblem. However, one of the better cards you can be playing in this deck is Hatred. So this is a great card mainly because you can pay 3 and double black, pay X life, target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn. We could of course swing away with Obeka, make sure that it is unblockable with our many ways of giving it unblockable, then pump it in with Hatred and get so much upkeeps based off of the life that you put into it. I'll tell you what, this could be extremely dangerous, not only for the fact that you could have a lot of upkeeps, but potentially you could just go in for commander damage, again according to how much life you do have on the battlefield. But of course there's so many beginning of upkeep triggers that we can take advantage of. So I did want to give you some examples in this part of the video. I did want to focus on some of the shrines like Hoden of Infinite Rage, Hoden of Night's Reach, Hoden of Seeing Winds, and all depending on how much shrines you do have on the battlefield. You could either deal a lot of damage, make opponents discard cards, and you could draw cards depending on which shrine you do have on the battlefield. And of course these could be extraordinarily brutal depending on how much upkeep triggers you can take advantage of with Obeka swinging in for damage. Some other enchantments I did want to focus on are the Court cycle, for example, Court Embereth and Court of Ire. Court of Embereth is a really good one because it does have the Monarch ability, and at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 3/1 red knight creature token. Then if you are the Monarch, it will deal X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. And with Court of Ire, it does have the Monarch ability too. All these courts do have the Monarch ability, by the way. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can deal 2 damage to any target. If you are the Monarch, it deals 7 damage to that player or permanent instead. This could be a game winner depending on how much upkeeps we do have. Of course, if we are the Monarch, the more damage we could just throw around to anything on the battlefield, so this is extremely powerful. The blue courts are also great as well. Court of Cunning and Court of Vantress are both excellent, mainly because you could focus on cloning stuff on the battlefield with Court of Vantress, and you can make people mill cards with Court of Cunning. But I would say out of the courts that we can use, the black courts are excellent in this deck. Court of Ambition and Court of Lochthwain are really brutal, especially against your opponents. Court of Ambition can be pretty nutty because at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card, but if you are the Monarch, each opponent will lose 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. If they don't have any cards in their hand, and we have a lot of upkeep triggers, we could just make our opponents just lose so much life in the process. And with Court of Lochthwain, it can be pretty mean, especially stealing from your opponent's library, so either one is pretty good. I like the ones that really focus on the damage because they could act as great win cons, like Court of Ire or Court of Ambition. Either one are pretty good in the deck. Another brilliant card you could take advantage of is As Foretold. So for 2 and a blue, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on As Foretold. So that's pretty nice, of course. If we do swing away with Obeka, we can get more upkeep so that we can put more time counters on As Foretold. Also, it does have the ability, once each turn you may pay 0 mana rather than paying the mana cost for each spell you cast with mana values X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold. So if we have this stick around long enough, this is just going to provide insane value, basically casting things for free here and there. There are also some pretty good creatures that you can take advantage of with the beginning of the upkeep triggers, like Twilight Prophet and Bonehorde Dracusaur. Twilight Prophet is incredible in here, mainly because at the beginning of your upkeep, if you do have the City's Blessing, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. Each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the card's mana value. And I will tell you already, there's going to be a lot of high mana value cards in the deck, so triggering this to make a lot of people lose life and you gain life is going to be pretty easy and could be a win condition itself. I also do love Bonehorde Dracusaur. Not only is it a dream come true making a dinosaur dragon, but it does have some great abilities that synergize with our commander. We could exile the top 2 cards of our library, and if one of them were a land, you create a 1/3 dinosaur creature token, and if it was a non-land, you create a treasure token, so it ramps you ahead and also makes token on the battlefield. And I do know I am going to be re-emphasizing this with each card, but the more upkeep triggers you do make with Obeka, the more value you will get out of these cards specifically. But if you really want to dive deeper into those upkeep triggers, you can take advantage of Portal to Phyrexia, Shieldred the Whispering One, and Virtue of Persistence. Each of these provide immense value, basically Portal to Phyrexia being a board wipe for 3 creatures on the battlefield, and you could resurrect something from the graveyard to the battlefield, and that kind of stands for each of these, mainly with their upkeep triggers. With Shieldred the Whispering One, you could reanimate a creature from any graveyard to the battlefield, but I do like Virtue of Persistence because it does have that adventure cost to basically remove something on the board that's a small creature, and you could gain some life. But the big reason why I do like these 3 cards specifically in this deck, they act as removal, but also could act as a benefit to put creatures on the battlefield for us. But if you want to get nuts, Descent into Avernus is incredible in this deck. So for 2 and a red, at the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. So of course, in the process, you could potentially kill yourself with this specifically, so I would basically proceed with caution, mainly because if you do swing with Obeka, you have a lot of upkeep triggers. The more and more you do put Descent counters in this, the more you are going to get treasure, but the more you are going to deal damage to yourself. Of course, you are dealing damage to your opponents too. Just make sure you have more life than your opponents when playing this card. If you do want to throw a win con into the deck, Mechanized Production will be the best option for you, mainly because you can enchant an artifact you control, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So of course this could really speed run the victory with Obeka, because if you do have like a treasure token on the battlefield and you have a couple of them, you could just enchant one of them with Mechanized Production, swing it with Obeka, and if it does have a lot of power, you will get all those triggers of making more and more of those treasure tokens on the battlefield specifically, and potentially if you do have 8 or more, you could win the game there. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Obeka Splitter of Seconds. This is going to be a pretty powerful and nutty commander. Of course, the more upkeep triggers that you do produce with it when you deal combat damage. But let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts and opinions about Obeka Splitter of Seconds? I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback for Obeka, mainly because I feel like there's a lot of ways to bust Obeka wide open with a lot of upkeep triggers. So I'd love to hear from you. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.